Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and specifically welcome back to my Masterclass series where I go above and beyond my regular tank review to help you be able to achieve things like more ace tankers, or maybe marks of excellence, or maybe just funky builds to make you enjoy vehicles more. Today I'm going to be talking about the tier 10 Czechoslovakian heavy tank. It is the VZ55. Now before we begin I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the VZ55 is scheduled to be nerfed. If it goes through in the 1.22 update, its intra-clip reload will be changed from 2 seconds to 2.5, its gun reload time will be changed from 22 seconds to 25, and its aiming time will be nerfed from 2.7 seconds to 3 seconds. However, there's still no guarantee that this is going to happen. Plus, even if it does, it doesn't really impact how I would recommend setting up the vehicle nor playing it. It just means the vehicle's going to be a little bit worse, and so I feel like it's still a good time to make a masterclass on the VZ55. But keep in mind that if you are watching this in the future, that my VZ55 might end up just being a little bit better than the one in update 122. So firstly, let's talk about the fact that there are two guns that are available on the VZ55. There's a single shotgun with better accuracy, better damage per minute, and much better aim time, especially if the nerfs go through, but you can't use a gun rammer on a vehicle like this. And so really, if you want to play the VZ55 like this, you'd probably be better playing a Kampfpanzer or something like a WZ-111-5A. And it really is the 2-round burst, even in its nerf state, that I think will be the powerhouse on this tank. And all of these stats have resulted in the VZ55 having the best win ratio of any of the auto-loading heavies. In fact, there's still a 1.5% win ratio disparity between the VZ55 and its next closest auto-loading rival, the T57 Heavy. On top of this, in the last 30 days on the European server, the VZ55 has done the most damage of any heavy tank inside the game, at least inside a tech tree, trumping even the inflappable Super Conqueror. Consequently, the marks of excellence requirements for the VZ55 as it stands is 4,768 per game, making it the second hardest tech tree tank in World of Tanks to be able to 3-mark outside of the Manticore. Accordingly, it looks like I've got my work cut out for me today. Crew-wise, the VZ55 is really simple. You just need a premium commander with brothers in arms, because the commander is also the radio operator. But as it's a heavy, it doesn't really even feel like it has that much pressure. Then you can just get away with a regular gunner, driver, and loader. I would prioritize things like brothers in arms, repairs. Smooth ride can really end up helping because this vehicle doesn't have the best gun handling on the move, and I would thoroughly recommend on your gunner to take Deadeye to increase your critical chances, because this thing delivering its shells in 2 seconds currently means that, boy, do you get a lot of ammo racks, as players just don't have enough time to repair the yellow ammo rack damage. Equipment wise, I personally love using durability, vents, and vertical stabilizers on this tank. Although some people will like to use a turbo, it's hard to say which module you should drop to be able to use it. By far the best games I ended up having on this vehicle was not with a turbo, as honestly this vehicle felt fast enough even without one. And that's coming from somebody called QuickyBaby who likes to use a turbo on a lot of tanks, but I don't feel like the VZ55 needs it. Field mods wise, I like to take all-terrain suspension on this vehicle to increase its ground resistances. I'm going to be improving the accuracy on the vehicle. Of course, I'm going to be improving the view range of this vehicle. For the penultimate field mod, I like to take the 4 kilometers an hour extra top speed, which makes this thing go at 54 kilometers an hour even without a turbo. And for the final field mod, I personally ended up improving the hit points of the tank, but if you absolutely, utterly must have the best gun handling possible, perhaps go the other way, but you're going to have to end up sacrificing about 80 hit points on the vehicle, and sometimes 80 hit points is what you need to stay in the game. And I do feel with vertical stabilizers, this vehicle's gun handling is good enough. Anyway, let's jump in with gameplay with arguably the best tech tree heavy tank in the game. So first I'm going to be rolling out on Westfield, and you see I'm going to be using durability, vents, and vert stabs. I'm also tryharding, as this is the hardest heavy tank in the game to 3-mark, so I'm using in a vent directive as well. A vent directive will add an entire 1% cruise skill in addition to the 2.5%, so it's kind of almost like putting 70% of an additional vent on this vehicle. So it's very powerful, and it's definitely one of my top tips. I personally wait until I get to about like 93% marks of excellence before I start to burn those vent purges. They can really end up helping and really push up the performance of your vehicle. So where am I going to go in the VZ55? Well, it's pretty clear. I'm going up here because then I can keep all of my opponents right in front of me. I can keep my frontal armor towards my opponents, and this vehicle is like a predator of opportunity. It is effectively the hardest hitting heavy tank in that 2 seconds burst. And still, even if it does get nerfed to 2.5 seconds intra-clip reload, it is still going to be the hardest hitting heavy tank in a 2.5 seconds burst on this tank, which is going to be outrageous as well still. 490 damage, or should I say 980 damage is outrageous to do in a 2-second window, and it will still be very good even if it's in a 2.5 second window. It's interesting that the VZ55, even without being top of the tree or being featured as some kind of vehicle in Wargaming's Battle Pass, is currently the most played heavy tank at tier 10, at least with regards to the tech tree, which is probably another reason why Wargaming are nerfing it. However, unlike the Progetto, which I think really didn't need the nerf and Wargaming would nerfing it because of its popularity, I do believe the VZ55, it's definitely too good. If it's doing the most damage and it's getting by far the best win ratio of any of the auto-loading heavies in that kind of a matchup, it is overperforming. So I wasn't quite able to get the second shot there into the T110E4 when I was wedging my armor up there. And I have to admit, in this tank, one thing I'd recommend is to never get too greedy for the 2-round burst. Sure, it can be really nice to be able to deliver it, but yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about going around the left-hand corner here to be able to go after the FV405 and the Foch 155. However, if you want to be getting that kind of like average 4,800 damage per game in this vehicle, so for every game that you do 0, the next game you need to do 9,600 damage, you also do need to take your chances. And I feel like that's where this tank is strong, is almost taking the risks. Because it has enough armor. The vehicle's armor is very decent. 300mm of turret armor and 115mm of well-angled hull armor as well. But now we're probably going to see an intuition change here. No, I'm actually just going to fire. I actually bounced the Foch 155 and I go for the FV40, and I bounced the 405 as well, or maybe he just hit my tracks. Doesn't even manage to take them off with that 180 3mm caliber gun. So I'm actually trying to come up with a bit of a plan in the chat here, saying after reload, do you want to push? And that's because in this kind of a situation, it's very hard to like break your opponents away from this ridge unless you go and take this dip. And seeing how the VZ55 was down to 3/4 hit points, I was trying to work with the 260 that maybe if he goes in like this and I go in like this, it will be a good idea. But then I go, actually no, we can't with the T110E4. And I think that's a pretty a good decision. Last thing I'd want right now is to throw all of kind of like my marks progress. I think I was up to about 93 or 94% at this stage. And so yeah, you do have to get a little bit sweaty in this tank. But let me get back to focus. And that is, with this vehicle, you don't want to kind of like overcommit, but just waiting for opportunities like this. You know, when an Object 2790 just drives out alongside you and you know you're going to do 1,000 damage, that's where this tank is crazy. People think, oh, it's a Jagdpanzer E100, really don't want to drive out in front of that. But this tank is only doing like 70 less damage in a 2-second window currently than a Jagdpanzer E100 would if it was to hit you, but just so much more flexible. One thing I'd like to mention about this tank, however, that I really noticed while I was 3-marking it, is that its premium rounds really do suck very badly. Sure, they've got pretty good shell velocity, as you can see here. You can see we can fully aim in between that 3-second window, although with the nerfed aim time, that might be a little bit more of a bloom. But the vert stabs just stop it from ever getting inaccurate in the first place. But 306mm of pen is very weak for a premium round on a tier 10 tank. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Kranvang in that regard, with only 300mm of heat pen. But the difference on this tank is it doesn't have 10 or 12 degrees of gun depression, and its top of its turret does have weak points, which means that you can't really just get into a scenario where you're kind of like overpowering your opponents with pure penetration. You know, the kinds of tanks that have like 340 pen, something like a T110E5, where you can just sit in front of a mouse and just loosely aim at its turret, load the gold, and absolutely chomp it down. The VZ55 has to be a little bit more sneaky than that. Talk about being sneaky, what I'm doing is not very subtle, it's about as subtle as a hammer. I'm going to ask the Minotauro for help here against the VZ55, and now I'm in. And I just want to make this aggressive, risky play. Now, I'm not sure if that guy's using the single shotgun, or if I caught him with only 1 round in the autoloader. You can actually tell by how the end of the barrel is flared, and we can see he is using the single shot gun because he has a flare on the end of his barrel, and we can see that mine is smooth at the end. So who's going to win, the single shot tank or who's going to win the autoloader? Well, in theory, the single shot tank actually shot me 3 times, and while I did shoot him 4 because I caught him with a bit of an ambush, kind of win that duel, but oh dear, Foch 155 coming at me. How am I going to handle this? I'm driving straight towards him. I bounce his first shell. Even if he did manage to pen, I would still have 250 hit points, and now we get to finish him off. And this is just a positional play to to try and squeeze out that extra from the game. That push play on the VZ55 was because I frankly need to achieve more. This was one of the, I'm not going to say it was the hardest tank for me to 3-mark from the tech tree perspective, but it was definitely a harder one. And I really had to be at the top of my game and try to think about, it's really about, when you've got so much potential with this 980 burst, it's so important to see the positions that are going to give you those 2-round bursts. If you want to have big boy games in the VZ55, it's not enough to kind of like just finish off a tank that's on 300 hit points and then have to reload. You have to be dumping in 1,000 mags, hopefully on reload in this tank. And even if Wargaming do nerf the vehicle, because of the fact that the bloom is still quite substantial on this tank, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. Talk about the end of the world, that was very nearly the end of the world there against the FE405. And just look at this thing. Because it hits so hard as an autoloader, unlike something like an AMX 50B or something like a T57 Heavy, you can finish off the FE405, not have to worry about like a low roll, because a T57 Heavy can roll for down for like 300, and then I've got more than enough to deal with the STRV-103B as well. I bounced the Ho-Ri, and I managed to, unfortunately, only get a shot into the track of the Ho-Ri 3. But I retracked them there, and I was kind of hoping that maybe I'll get the rest of the 1,000 tracking against someone, or at least I help the EBR. So in this situation, you'll see that I've got a decision. Okay, now I know that the GWE is spotted by me, and because I've got tanks over there who are going to shoot the GWE, it's actually better for me to go after the Ho-Ri 3 now, especially when you consider that I did 500 assistance earlier, and so my assistance is more important than the tracking right now. And it's those kind of min-maxes that you'll have to do in the VZ55. It's not enough to just play for a win when you're playing sweaty tryhard in a tank like this. If you're trying to 3-mark, you also have to play the mini-game. And I min-maxed at the end there. Not only did I get all of the spotting on the GW100, I also got an extra 500 on the Ho-Ri. And trust me, that 500 extra that you can try and like min-max out of the battle is the 10% increased damage or combined that you are going to need to propel yourself up into the realms of the 3-mark on this vehicle. Anyway, this was over 10,000 combined and 5 kills, and it was pretty much just the quintessential VZ55 game. We use that burst to be able to punish our opponents for when they poked, as this is the most punishing heavy tank with regards to punishing pokes. 2 seconds is within that 6th sense reaction time, let alone a player's reaction to the scenario. Being able to deliver that second shot so quickly after the first, that's why this thing is special. So now we're rolling out on Himmelsdorf against tier 9 and tier 10 tanks. And this is where, you get an opportunity. AMX 50B comes around the corner. AMX 50B is going to be the focus because it's the full guy. It's the low armored vehicle. And you've got to try and make your opportunities well, you just got to try and jump on any kind of opportunities that you can. AMX 50B wants to poke. You can't really blame him. He has, what, a 2.5 second intra-clip reload? It still take him 7.5 seconds to deal the 1,600 damage magazine potential. But if you see somebody who's about to make an ugly trade, then hopefully you're going to be able to make it just that little bit sweeter. Maybe not for that player, but for your team. And so, while you don't want to use your team as meat shields, sometimes you can be able to push forwards and take a shot. It's not too bad. Unfortunately, that second shell was a bit of a misplay there. I don't manage to finish off the WZ. But making those trades in the VZ55 is just lovely, especially for a tank that can get up to like 2,400 hit points with a durability device. You can get shot like 6 times by something like a WZ-120 or a T-125. But I can tell you, they can't get shot that many times by you. So we finish off the VZ, we finish off the M60, and it's just so easy to secure kills with that mag. And being able to pick up 2 kills in 2 shots with kind of such confidence with that 490 alpha damage definitely feels pretty sweet. There's no other heavy tank in the game that really feels like that. I guess you could argue maybe a Caliban, but good luck trying to make the Caliban work with its horrible gun handling, right? Okay, so a bit of a tricky shot here. You'll see that I'm actually trying to aim up into the underflap of the VZ55. Be very careful with this tank when you crest ridges, because if your opponents shoot you right up through here when they're down below, not only are they going to track you, but they're also going to be able to overmatch you. Should be very careful with when you poke over ridges. It's almost better to go over at an angle to try and just bait your opponents into shooting your lower plate or force them to shoot your tracks in that scenario. And oh dear, buddy, this isn't where you want to be on the receiving end of a VZ55. We managed to Amarak him once. I was kind of hoping for a second Amarak there, but luckily my team barged through, finished them off. I say thank you to the Leopard, as the Leopard undoubtedly saved me 1,000 hit points there. And when you can make these kind of like breakthrough plays, like you saw in the previous game on Westfield, and as you're going to see on Himmelsdorf, this thing just claps. And it's outrageous to me that it's just so fast. You know, a T-57 Heavy goes along at like, what, 35 kilometers an hour? An AMX-50B, it's fast. No doubt the AMX-50B is fast, but it has to make do with some of the worst turret armor probably in World of Tanks to be able to gain that advantage. The VZ55 is just this all-round cookie-cutter tank. You'd consider it to have as good armor, if not better, than something like a WZ-111-5A, but it just has that 2-round autoloader. And while the nerfs will definitely be able to bring this tank more in line, I don't think that they're really going to just completely eviscerate the vehicle with regards to how competitive it is. So unfortunately for me, the bat chat hits me once, they damage my fuel tanks, but I've still got 20 seconds left until I can repair my fuel tanks. I was very worried that I was going to burn there. If, like me, you are a premium consumable user, aka a food user, or you just skip using the fire extinguisher on a tank, you must repair your fuel tanks. And I feel like this tank especially, it's why using the durability is so great. It does seem to lose its fuel tanks and its ammo rack quite a lot. So by using that durability device, you make it so that you don't get permatracked. Or even if you do get permatracked, it's just quite often tricky for your opponents to be able to hold you there. And if you're getting caught by multiple tanks, well, you've probably done something, a bigger mistake. And undoubtedly using a durability device on this vehicle, as it's fast enough already, allows you to spend your repair kit on the fuel tanks, to spend your repair kit on the ammo rack, which does get damaged in this vehicle often. Would I recommend to use experimental equipment on this vehicle to be able to improve the ammo rack durability and the health of the fuel tanks? Probably not. I think that would be a little bit overkill, and I think that you'll do better from getting the all-round track health on this tank. And as we can see, gosh, imagine if that char had been fully loaded there and had the extra 2 shots, they would have been able to finish me off. Luckily, it was not the case. I'm looking for the VZ55, thinking, shall I hunt him and be able to try and min-max my game there, or shall I go after the char? And I realize, yeah, I got to go after the char in this scenario. And we lost our fuel tanks again. So if I hadn't repaired them, that would have been a fire, and I would have, to all intents and purposes, been out in this game. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here. I'm going to raise my gun in the air. Not really necessary to do this, but in the end, you know what? I save 1,000 credits of ammunition there, and I'll be able to finish them off and pick up my 7th kill. And easy does it. Easiest 6,000 damage in 6 minutes of World of Tanks that you can get, as well as also destroying half of the enemy team. So now we're going to be assaulting on steps, and on this map there's only one position I really want to go to in a heavy tank that has a decent turret. What I want to do is immediately try and take the rock position over here and expose myself only with the turret. You can use this rock to be able to avoid your lower plate getting seen, and that allows you to poke over this ridgeline without having like 10 or 12 degrees of gun depression, which otherwise you would need to do so. So we're going to load some gold here, and we are going to go clap one, and we're going to follow it up with another clap. And we knocked out that T-124's fuel tank and his engine. I have to admit, having Eagle Eye on this vehicle is very rewarding, because I do seem to do a lot of module damage with this large caliber gun and firing multiple times. And with that 2 or be it 2.5 second intraclip reload with the nerf, it's still going to be able to do some absolute work with regards to that. We put another shell in. Unfortunately, the 4th round that we fire this game doesn't quite manage to go into the VZ55. But I'm actually thinking about pushing right now, because the Minotaur is getting forwards. I'm going to tell the Minotaur that I'm going to help them. And because the VZ55 was reloading, and so it's not really too concerning. Maybe I'd take a shot from the AMX M454, but to be able to progress, I think it was worth it. Interestingly enough, in this game, I think I haven't taken the durability device in this game. I took a turbo, and I think that's because I wanted to be able to progress to get that position early. But in retrospect, I think that's probably just a misplay, and I didn't switch from the turbo to the durability device. And I think that I should have still taken a durability device on this map. I would take a durability device on 90% of maps in this vehicle, if not all maps on this vehicle over a turbo. So I guess then it comes down to whether you think that the turbo is better than vert stabs, or is it better than vents? I don't think so. Especially bond vents on this vehicle. If you combine that with a directive, not only do I use intuition quite a lot in this vehicle to be able to switch out between the AP and the APCR, just to be able to save myself some credits, But also you can switch out to high explosive rounds, and it is oh so satisfying to go after lightly armored tanks with 68mm of pen and 640 damage. We are talking about dealing 1,280 damage in 2 seconds. Currently 2.5 seconds with the nerfs with high explosive. I remember Vent massively reduced the intuition time. I think with Vents and a directive on this vehicle and good crew skills, you're kind of getting down to within like the 3.5 second intuition shell switch, which is almost like the same level as some single shot guns, which is absolutely disgusting. Of course, with the 3-second nerf to the reload on this vehicle, that's going to drop off a little bit. So a terrible trade there against the AMX M454. I don't manage to catch him, and he definitely manages to catch me. In this kind of a situation, I could probably trade a lot more aggressively if I was using the durability device. But without that, and my track's not going back to full health, I've still got to be concerned. Luckily, oh, come to Papa. That is it, 922 damage dealt there to the baby brother in the TNH TVZ51. Okay, so in this kind of a situation, I'm just going to go with this T95. That's the bulldozer, and I'll be kind of like the ball, the wrecking ball behind it, right? And yeah, this is quite a wrecking ball. We're going to put 1 in, 2 in. Unfortunately, low rolls mean the AMX M454 survives. The TNH VZ51 getting me is inconsequential, as the T110E3 finishes them off and the Minotaur deals with the Tier 9 Czechoslovakian Heavy. And I'm going to tell this T95 that I'm going to help him. And as he gives me the thumbs up, I really don't think he'll mind having a little bit of a boost here. And also, with the boost, he's going to basically be an awesome shield for me. Looks like I was actually able to get him up to about 25 or 26 kilometers. I'm going to stay slightly on his right here. I was thinking about crossing, but then I realized VZ55, no thank you. That VZ does no damage. I'm going to try and get some shots into the Rinoceronte here. Unfortunately, the Rinoceronte gets a shot into me, and then I'm going to continue to plow forwards. And this is just perfect. Awesome symbiotic relationship here. Hopefully the T110E3 can come with us as well. And that's because obviously the VZ55, for all that it's great, that lower plate is pretty bad, and it does stick up very awkwardly. It's only really massively lower tier tanks that are going to not be able to go through there. So the T95 gets a great shot in, and I'm a bit worried about the VZ55 coming around the corner and clapping. You'll see that I'm looking for the overmatch up into his tank, but I don't quite manage to get it. However, seeing how the VZ55 isn't going to poke now, I feel that I've got to take the risk to progress. And again, this is that stage of the game where you've got to try and make a play to kind of like explode out in a VZ55. It's not enough to limp if you want to get your 3rd mark and only do 3,000 damage in a battle. You're gunning for like 4,800. And in a game like this, it's about propelling it forwards to hopefully make some major gains. So we hit the GW Tiger, 1-shot 500 health vehicle, and turn our attention next to the WT Alpha Panzer IV. I'm hoping if I poke up here that I can get some vision on the Leopard or even the Gorilla to be able to help out a little bit more. But it's actually a bit of a misplay as the Rinoceronte gets a shot in the side. Hopefully we get some spotting. Only 203 against the Gorilla. A little bit disappointed about that. Was hoping for a little bit more. And this sneaky Rinoceronte really wants me, but he's sticking his front up. So I really don't like that. I don't like the fact that they got a shot into us there. And I'm hoping that he's reloaded, right? Or reloading, I should say, right now, as I want to get that extra shot into the Rinoceronte. And it looks like maybe he's empty in this scenario. My adrenaline rush goes off, which now makes this thing feel as if it's almost reloads 2 shells in the time that it takes some tanks to reload 1 shell. And we can just hopefully now apply some more aggression to whoever's left. This T95 is still doing well. He's got exactly the same hit points as when I last left him. And he's going to come round, finish off the Rinoceronte, and I'm already plotting the end of my game, which is hopefully to get 1 mag into this VZ55. I feel like that'll be the best possible solution for me. I won't be able to reload twice. We're going to track the VZ55, catch him with a 2nd. I fall, but that is a whopping amount of damage, 8,600 with a little bit more assistance. That is, again, near enough a 10,000 combined game in just under 7.5 minutes. So this is it. This is the sweaty game. I was sitting at about 94.5% or 94.6%. Will this be the 3-mark game? Oh, yes, it is. It is. But I really wanted to just highlight this. It's important to me because it's not... I had the option for this vehicle of not trying to 3-mark it while it was good. One of the things that you can do when you know a tank is going to be nerfed is what you can do is get to about like 92 or 93% marks, roughly about that. Then wait for the vehicle to be nerfed, then wait 2 weeks, and then play it and hopefully have like a reasonable game. And what will happen with the VZ55 is that the marks of excellence requirements will go down, but all of the results that you had won't have gone down at all. And so if the VZ55's marks of excellence requirements change from about the 4,800 that it is now down to 4,600, that would be quite conservative. I really don't think it's going to drop down to 4,400. I don't think it'll be that much of a hit to the vehicle. But that is still a significant fall. The 5% or 10% requirement fall will mean that if you've got to about 92%, you could almost not even do any damage in one game. After that 2-week period, you could be able to cheese out your mark. However, I wanted to prove to myself as well that I was good enough to be able to 3-mark the VZ55, albeit not as hard as to do, not even close as being as hard as to do something like a reward vehicle, like a Chieftain or a 279E. But this is as hard as it gets, at least with regards to tech tree tanks, outside of the Manticore. But I think everyone would agree that the Manticore is also the kind of vehicle that it's about a run of maps, run of games. Whereas I think you can be a little bit more consistent with the VZ55. And if you can see those trades, and I did learn a lot in this vehicle while I was trying to get a bit sweaty and 3-mark this vehicle, then that's really the key, is just being able to see those trades and see those opportunities. But in this game as well, you're also going to see it's not just about seeing the opportunities up here, it's also about thinking about, yo, the game could end, and if the game ends, there's no more damage. So I was hoping that this Mauerbrecher on my team, Mauerbrecher, however am I meant to say it, I'm sorry, Germany, for insulting you all with my terrible dialect. But as you can see, I was quite stressed about nobody seemingly wanting to interrupt the cap. So much so that this Cobra, he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head. But at the time, I was rather upset that the Cobra shaved off even like a couple of seconds. I tell the guard that I'm going to help him, just praying that the guard is going to get into the cap circle. I'm not sure if I'm even going to type it, but I'm hoping he realizes. He stops, he shoots the pilot, which gives us a few extra seconds. And to be fair, the guard actually went and parks himself into the cap circle before I do. So massive thanks to you, guard. And I wasn't taking any chances here. I just wanted to get stuck in and be able to farm up. But funnily enough, oh dear, what's this? I get absolutely slammed. Luckily, the Kampfpanzer gets ammo racked there. It doesn't look like they've got a repair kit, so they're not wanting to be able to get the extra in. But oh, look at that spotting. Getting a lot of it here. And this is where, at the end of the game, you just got to be aggressive. And you're going to see that we go from, what, we had like a 3,000 combined game, already now up to like a 5,700 combined game. And it's not tracking, so that's pure. Remember, with marks, your tracking and your assistance, it's whichever's going to be highest. It's not going to be both of them combined. And so if you get tracking in a game, it's wasted if the highest amount is going to be spotting. So the Borask is dumping in on us. I'm just trying to like stay alive right now. I'm kind of a one-shot for any of the really big boy tanks. And I should aim at the side here, because that's where the side weak point will be for the WZ. Unfortunately for me, the Mauerbrecher, who didn't go and interrupt the cap circle, just reverses at a moment's notice to be able to deny me the possibility of maybe getting a high caliber in this game. But I can't blame him. He just wanted to go and take a look around the corner. But I tell you what, when you're trying to 3-mark the hardest tech tree heavy tank to do in the game, it can feel a little bit stressful. So in this situation, it was all about just trying to get a little bit more spotting against the Borask. I pinged the Borask. Hopefully I managed to get the vision there. I was thinking about getting the Kampfpanzer. I didn't actually get any vision on the Borask. And oh my word, what is this? Ammo rack, baby. I did the full T25 pilot in a single magazine, upping our total to a 7,500 combined game. And boy, was I happy about that. The ammo rack literally propelled me over the top to be able to get my 3rd mark in the VZ55. And while our second game on Westfield wasn't exactly fancy like our first one with 1,489 base experience, over 10,000 combined, managed to break even with the 92,000 credits spent. And the high caliber ace tank, it was the one that got me the 3rd mark. That bonus pilot appearing randomly in that bush in front of me and the ammo rack. Yeah, I needed a little bit of luck to get across the finish line. And the session that got me this was 26 games, nearly 4,000 average WN8, 58% wins, and 4,500 damage per game. So all in all, the VZ55, it's currently the highest damage dealing heavy tank inside a tech tree in the game. Do I think that it needs a little bit of a nerf? Yeah, I think it needs probably a little bit of a nerf from its damage perspective. But on the other hand, there's this nerf from 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds kind of takes away the only special thing of the vehicle, which is that 2-second intra-clip reload and that big bursty damage. And while I do expect the statistics of this vehicle to go down a little bit, I don't think they're going to plummet like they did with the Kranvang, for example, which was a very heavy-handed nerf. And so, is the VZ worth picking up now? Yes, certainly. I think it's one of the most fun damage-dealing heavy tanks in the game. Will the VZ55 be worth picking up if Wargaming do go ahead with these nerfs? I think that it probably will. And while it's undoubtedly not going to be quite as good as it is now, this thing will still be a brute of the battlefield. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments what you think about both the VZ55 and the proposed nerf to the VZ55. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.